Feedback, one of the most powerful things you can ever do after a break, especially when you're in no contact, is absolutely nothing. And I don't mean that in a passive way, feedback. I mean it in the most deliberate, intentional, confident way possible. Because here's the truth: silence is not weakness. It's not avoidance. It's not indifference. It's power. Feedback. And when you learn how to wield that power, you change the entire dynamic. When a relationship ends and we feel rejected or abandoned, our natural instinct is to explain ourselves, to seek closure. Feedback, to beg for understanding, maybe even to plead for another chance. We want them to see what they lost, to feel our pain, to somehow validate that it wasn't supposed to end like that. Feedback. But every single one of those impulses pulls our energy outward toward them. And that's exactly what you have to stop. After no contact, your silence becomes the message. Feedback. Your restraint speaks louder than anything you could text, say, or post. Think about it. When someone expects you to reach out, when they assume you'll be the one who breaks, who caves, feedback, who needs them, and you don't, that void you leave behind starts to echo, and it echoes with questions. Feedback. Why hasn't she reached out to her? Did she move on? Was she pretending to care less than she actually did? Is she already with someone else? The moment you stop casing is the moment they start wandering. Now I get it, silence feels unbearable at first. Feedback. You'll sit with the discomfort of uncertainty, the pull to fix things, the ache of missing them. But that's the discomfort of growth. That's not weakness. That's strength in motion. Feedback. Because when you choose to hold back and focus on yourself, you interrupt the pattern. Feedback. You shift the power dynamic from one where you're constantly reacting to one where you're responding with intention or choosing not to respond at all. Silence gives you time to recalibrate your value. Feedback, to remind yourself that you're not someone who needs to beg for attention, justify your worth, or cling to something just because you were once attached to it. Feedback. You're someone who knows that if someone wanted to be with you, they'd make it clear. And if they haven't, feedback. That's not your cue to prove your worth. It's your cue to own it without needing their recognition. Because here's the kicker: when you stop feeding the connection, they feel the absence. Feedback. And that absence, if you allow it to do its job, turns into regret, especially when they start seeing you carry yourself like someone who's doing just fine without them. Feedback. That's the moment they go from feeling like they had control to realizing they might have just lost something they can't replace. Let's be honest. Regret doesn't come from your texts or calls or declarations of love. Feedback. Regret comes when someone realizes you've stopped orbiting them, when they can't predict you, when they check their phone and there's nothing from you. Feed, no thinking of you, no just wondering how you are, no birthday messages, no breadcrumbs, nothing. That's when they start to wonder if maybe they were wrong. Feedback. If maybe they misjudged your value, if maybe they lost something rare, and you don't have to be cruel or calculated to make that happen. You just have to be centered. Feedback. You just have to be focused on something more important than them, you. Because the more you focus on your healing, your growth, your happiness, the more you become magnetic. Feedback. Not because you're trying to make them regret losing you, but because you genuinely stop waiting for them to come back. That's what makes the silence so powerful. It's not a game back. It's a declaration, a quiet one, but one that carries so much weight. If he does come back, and sometimes feedback, they do, you'll be in the perfect position to decide whether he truly deserves another chance, not because you missed him so much you couldn't help yourself, feedback, but because you now have the clarity, the peace, and the confidence to know what you deserve. And if he doesn't come back, you still win. Feedback, because you didn't waste time begging for someone who wasn't choosing you. You kept your dignity intact. You chose you. You see, after no contact, feedback, the question isn't how do I make him miss me? The real question is, Faye, how do I become so rooted in my own worth that whether he regrets it or not is no longer my measure of value? That's when the magic happens. Feedback. Not when he regrets it, but when you no longer need him to. Now let's talk about something that's often misunderstood, this idea of leveling up after a breakup. Feedback. Some people think it's shallow, like it's just about posting thirst traps or getting a revenge body. But that's not what I'm talking about here. Feedback. I'm talking about stepping into the best version of yourself, not for him, not to make him jealous, but because you remember who you are. Feedback. You remember what you forgot when you were too busy trying to be enough for someone who stopped seeing your value, when you've gone no contact and you're sitting in that silence. Feedback. It's easy to feel powerless, like you've just been left on pause, waiting for someone else to hit play again. But you're not on pause, you're in transformation. Feedback. And one of the most impactful things you can do right now is to look in the mirror, literally and figuratively, and ask feedback. Who do I want to become on the other side of this? Not how do I get him back, but how do I get me back? There's something incredibly magnetic about a person who's glowing, not just on the outside. Feedback, but from within. When you invest in yourself, your health, your body, your mindset, your energy, people notice. And more importantly, you notice you walk differently. Feedback. You carry yourself differently. Your standards rise, not because you're bitter or closed off. Feedback. But because you know you're worth more now than you were when you were bending over backward to make someone stay. That energy, it's electric. It's undeniable. And yes, he'll feel it. feedback. Whether you're in the same room or just a distant memory to him now, that shift will reach him because people can sense when you're not operating from lack anymore. Feedback. When you've stopped waiting to be chosen and started choosing yourself, think about the last time you felt truly confident. Feedback. Not the kind of confidence that comes from external praise or someone telling you you're beautiful, but the kind that comes from doing hard things, from showing up for yourself. Feedback, setting boundaries, from sticking to commitments. That's the kind of glow you want. That's the kind of transformation that makes someone stop in their tracks and go, feedback. Wait, what happened to her? And that's when the regret starts to creep in. Not because you forced it, feedback, but because you became the version of you he never had the chance to fully appreciate. Start small, change your morning routine, take care of your body, not because you hate it, feedback, but because you love it enough to treat it well. Eat like someone who respects herself. Move like someone who values her strength. Feedback. Dress like someone who's already in love with her reflection. Not because she's perfect, but because she's proud of who she's becoming. And go deeper than the surface. Feed your mind. Read. Feedback. Learn. Surround yourself with people who inspire you. Clear out the dead weight. Emotionally, physically, socially. That friend who only talks about your ex. Create space. Feedback. That playlist full of breakup songs. Archive it. Those clothes that remind you of him. Donate them. Everything around you should reflect where you're going. Feedback, not where you've been. The funny thing is, when you start doing this, not for show, not to post about it, feedback, but because you genuinely want more for yourself, you stop worrying about whether he's watching, you stop checking if he's viewed your story, or if he's noticed the new haircut. Feedback, or if he's seen that photo from dinner last weekend, because you're no longer living for his attention. You're living for your own evolution. And when that shift happens, something magical occurs. You become less available, not just physically, but energetically. You're not hanging around in the same emotional space where he left you. Feedback. You're not replaying the breakup or overanalyzing his last message. You're too busy building, growing, becoming. That kind of transformation is impossible to ignore. One day, feedback, he'll come across a photo or hear your name or bump into you somewhere and it'll hit him. Not just the physical difference, though that will be striking, but the energy, the lightness, feedback, the confidence, the way you carry yourself like someone who doesn't need anything from him anymore. That's what stings. Feedback. That's what makes someone realize they lost more than they knew. But here's the secret. By the time he realizes it, you might not even care, because you won't be doing this to get him back. Feedback. You'll be doing it because you've finally decided to stop shrinking, to stop waiting, to stop thinking that your best days were with him. They weren't. They're ahead of you. They're here. Feed now, waiting to be claimed. And when you become the version of you that he never believed you'd become, the one who glows with purpose, who moves with confidence, feedback, who lives with joy, that's when he regrets it. That's when it hits, because you didn't just get better, you became unforgettable. Feedback. One of the most life-changing realizations you can have after a breakup is this: you don't need to get him back to win. In fact, feedback, the real win, the one that actually matters, is building a life so full, so rich, so deeply fulfilling that his presence isn't even required. Feedback. That's the version of you that becomes unforgettable, not because you tried to make him regret losing you. Feedback, but because you stopped living your life around whether he did or didn't. After no contact, and especially in those quiet moments when you're tempted to look back, you have a choice. Feedback. You can either stay emotionally tethered to someone who isn't showing up for you, or you can start redirecting that energy into something that does. Your future, your passions. Feedback. Your independence, because no one regrets losing someone who's sitting around waiting. Feedback. They regret losing the person who outgrows them. And the only way to truly outgrow someone is to build momentum, build habits, build identity outside of that relationship. Feedback. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens by getting intentional with your time and your energy. Feedback. It starts the moment you decide that you're no longer going to make your happiness conditional on someone else's attention. Take a minute and ask yourself, what parts of your life were put on hold for that relationship? Dreams got delayed. What friendships faded? Feedback. What goals did you push to the background because you were too busy trying to manage someone else's inconsistency? This is the time to go back and pick all of that up again. Build a life that turns you on. Not just romantically, but emotionally, mentally, creatively. Do things that pull you into flow. Learn new skills, take bold steps, push your own boundaries. Feedback, because when you build a life you love, genuinely love, you no longer have to convince anyone else to be a part of it. They'll either be drawn to that energy or they'll fall away. Feedback, and either way you're good. It's not just about distractions. This isn't about keeping busy so you don't think about him. This is about building purpose, building direction. Feedback, because when you do that, your life takes on a gravitational pull. It becomes magnetic. Feedback, and that magnetism isn't just attractive, it's humbling to someone who once thought you needed them to be whole. And here's the thing: the more complete your life becomes without him, feedback, the less space there is for him in it. Not because you're bitter or guarded, but because you've built systems and routines and relationships that fulfill you. Feedback. You're not operating from emptiness anymore. You're full. And fullness is power. One of the greatest forms of regret is watching someone become everything you never supported them to be. Feedback. And that regret hits the hardest when they realize they don't have a seat at the table anymore. That while they were busy taking you for granted, feedback. You were busy building something they no longer qualify for. So pour your energy into your growth, financially, emotionally, feedback, physically, whatever areas of your life feel like they were waiting on pause. Start moving again, start becoming, and don't rush to share it with him. Let him hear about it through someone else. Feedback. Let him stumble across your success accidentally, or better yet, not at all. Feedback. Because this isn't about proving anything to him. It's about proving to yourself that you were never meant to stay small for someone who couldn't meet you where you were. Your time, feedback, your energy, your focus, these are your most powerful currencies. And when you stop spending them on what isn't choosing you, you suddenly have so much more to invest in what is feedback. Whether that's your career, your friendships, your fitness, your creativity, whatever lights you up, run toward it. Feedback. That's what turns pain into power. And here's what's so beautiful about this kind of transformation. By the time he starts to miss you, by the time the regret shows up, feedback, you might not even want him back. You'll look at him through the eyes of a woman who's built her own world, and you'll see clearly he doesn't fit here anymore. Feedback. That's not you closing off your heart. That's you raising your standards. When he finally sees the woman who rose from the silence, who rebuilt herself from the ground up, feedback, who filled her own life with meaning and purpose, that's when he feels it. Not just the loss of who you were, feedback, but the loss of who you became without him, because there's nothing more painful than realizing the person you once had no longer needs you at all. That's when the regret begins. Let's talk about something that's both beautifully simple and incredibly powerful, the gift of absence. Feedback. It's one of the most underestimated forces in human relationships, and yet it's the one thing that will leave the deepest imprint if you allow it to do its job. After you've got no contact, feedback. After you've stopped reaching out, after you've pulled your energy back, you might feel like nothing is happening. Like the silence means you've been forgotten. But the truth is, feedback, that silence is doing more work than any message ever could. Because in your absence, feedback, he's left to deal with something he never had to before, the weight of losing you. When someone gets used to you being there, even in small ways, a message here, a like there, back, a hint of interest, they never truly feel your absence. Even if you're not technically together anymore, they still feel like they have access to you. You're still in orbit. Feedback, still emotionally tethered. And as long as that line is open, they never really confront what life feels like without you. Feedback. They don't feel the consequences of their choices. But the moment you stop showing up in all the little ways, that's when it begins. That's when the space starts to grow. Feedback. That's when the questions start creeping in. Why hasn't she reached out? Did she move on? Does she even care anymore? And those questions can't be answered. Feedback. Because you're not there to answer them. And that uncertainty, that's what triggers reflection. That's what creates regret. You have to let someone miss you. Feedback. And you can't do that if you're always there, always available, always reminding them of your presence. People don't miss what they're still holding on to. Feedback. They miss what they have to let go of. Feedback. And they miss it most when they realize they can't get it back the same way they had it before. It's not just about physical distance. It's emotional distance. It's energetic distance. Feedback. It's the shift that happens when you stop making yourself emotionally available to someone who hasn't earned it. You stop checking in. You stop reacting to breadcrumbs. Feedback. You stop lingering in spaces where you feel small or forgotten, and you do it not because you're punishing them, but because you're healing. You're reclaiming your energy. Feedback. You're choosing peace over chaos. You're creating space for you again. And in that space, something really beautiful starts to happen. You grow quietly. Feedback. Without needing to prove anything to anyone, you evolve. Your perspective shifts. You start noticing things you once overlooked, the things you tolerated, the ways you overextended yourself, feedback, the times you lowered your standards, and you start making new decisions that serve your future, not your past. Meanwhile, feedback. He's still expecting the version of you that used to respond right away, that used to hold the emotional weight of the relationship. Feedback. That used to be available whenever he needed a boost of validation or connection. But now she's not there. She's moved on, not just in action, but in energy. And that absence, feedback, it hits differently. Suddenly, he's left with nothing but the memory of you. Not just what you said or how you looked, but how you've made him feel, and he realizes he can't replicate that. Feedback. He can chase distractions, dive into rebounds, scroll through photos, even try to replace you, but the essence of what he had with you is gone, and now it's out of reach. Feedback. That's where regret is born. Not in your presence, not in your words, but in your absence. And the hardest part for him, you didn't fight for closure. Cued back. You didn't come back to convince him of your worth. You let go with grace, with silence, with dignity, and you built a new life from it. You didn't make a scene. You didn't beg. Feedback you didn't unravel. You just stopped showing up, and that ending, the one he never got to control, the one he never got to tie a bow around, that's the one that lingers. Feedback. Because people remember the exits they didn't expect. They remember the silence they couldn't fill, and they remember the woman who didn't chase them, but disappeared, evolved. Feedback, and became someone even more powerful in their absence. So if you're wondering what to do after no contact, do this: give him the gift of missing you. Not through manipulation, not through tactics, feedback, but through true growth. Give him the space to feel your absence. Let him sit in the reality of life without you. Not because you want to hurt him, feedback, but because you've finally started loving yourself enough to walk away from anything that doesn't choose you fully. Because the moment he realizes you're not coming back, not in the way he remembers, feedback, not with the same heart he once held, that's when the regret sets in. Feedback. One of the biggest shifts you can make after going no contact, and one of the most powerful ways to make him regret losing you, is to become visibly alive again. Not just breathing. Feedback. Not just surviving, but thriving in a way that radiates joy and confidence from the inside out. You see, it's one thing to disappear after a breakup. Feedback. It's another thing entirely to reappear, not in his messages, not in his life, but in the world full of energy, surrounded by people. Feedback, and clearly doing just fine without him. There's something incredibly compelling about someone who refuses to put their life on hold for a person who walked away. Feedback. It doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean it didn't hurt, but it means you chose to keep living, to keep showing up, to keep laughing, exploring. Feedback. Building memories with people who appreciate you. That kind of resilience is rare. Feedback. And when someone who thought you'd be stuck in pain sees you out there smiling, really smiling, it does something to them. Most people expect to see the aftermath. Feedback. They expect the heartbreak posts, the subtle quotes, the lonely photos. They expect the "I miss you" energy that quietly begs for attention. But what if you don't give them that feedback? What if instead of proving you're heartbroken, you show them you're free? When your social life starts speaking for you, everything changes. You don't have to post anything dramatic. Feedback. You don't have to fake happiness. You just have to start living again, authentically and intentionally. Reconnect with friends you neglected during the relationship. Feedback. Say yes to things you used to put off. Try new places. Travel if you can. Pick up the hobbies you left behind. Feedback. And do it not to provoke a reaction, but because you finally realize how much of yourself you'd stopped showing up for. This is where social media, if used wisely, feedback can become a subtle but powerful message, not to him directly, but to the world, and more importantly, to you. It's a reflection of the new energy you're stepping into. Feedback. You're no longer stuck in the narrative of the one who was left. You're writing a new story, and every picture, every story, every glimpse into your life becomes a quiet reminder. Feedback. You didn't fall apart. You rose, and that creates a ripple effect. Because whether or not he's watching your stories or checking your profile, someone will show him feedback. Or something will trigger his curiosity, and one day he'll go looking. And what he sees won't be a woman waiting in the shadows, hoping he returns. He'll see someone surrounded by laughter, feedback, by warmth, by a life that looks better without him in it. And that's when the doubt creeps in. He'll start wondering if you ever really needed him in the way he thought. Feedback, if he mattered as much as he assumed, because we always think we'll be missed. We assume we're irreplaceable. Feedback. But when someone sees you not just surviving, but glowing, they're forced to confront a painful reality. Maybe they were the one who lost more. That's how you shift the balance, not with words. Feedback, not with confrontation, but with presence, with movement, with momentum. Because the truth is, regret doesn't come from watching someone beg for you back. Feedback, regret comes from watching them forget you. And I don't mean forget like you never mattered. I mean forget to center their world around you. Forget to look back. Forget to wait. Feedback. Forget to hold on to the past. And that's exactly what you do when you rebuild your social life with intention. Feedback. You start showing the world and yourself that your life didn't stop when he left. It got fuller. Go out and reconnect with your sense of fun. Feedback. Have experiences that remind you what life looks like when it's not filtered through the lens of heartbreak. Feedback. And don't do it to create a fast AD, do it because that version of you is still in there. She never left. She just needed a reason to come back. The irony is, feedback. When you begin to genuinely enjoy your life again, you become the very version of yourself he was drawn to in the first place. Only now, stronger, smarter, wiser. Feedback. And maybe even a little out of reach. And that's what drives the regret home. Not that you changed, but that you changed without him. Because when someone sees you surrounded by life, light, feedback, and people who value you, they begin to realize they're no longer the center of your universe. And once they're no longer the center, they lose the power. And once they lose the power, feedback, the regret sets in. That's how you make someone realize what they lost, by becoming someone they can no longer get back. When no contact ends, or if he reaches out after that stretch of silence, this is where so many people stumble. You've been strong, you've held back, you've done the hard part of creating space, and then suddenly he texts or calls or likes something you posted, and in that moment, feedback. It's like all that strength wants to collapse under the weight of hope. You want answers, you want clarity, you want to ask why. But this is the moment where you need to lean into something far more powerful than clarity. mystery. If you respond to his reappearance with full access to your emotions, your story, feedback, your pain, you hand him control again. And this time it doesn't come from him taking it. It comes from you giving it away. You see, people often regret what they can't figure out. Feedback. They stay hooked on what they can't quite read. But the moment you lay out all your feelings, explain how much it hurt, how long you've been waiting, feedback, how confused you've been, you remove the weight of their absence, you relieve their guilt, you make it safe for them to see you again without consequence. That doesn't mean you become cold. Feedback. It means you become intentional. You keep it light, calm. Neutral. Don't punish him, but you don't reward him either. You make him earn space in your life again, not with empty apologies. Feedback, not with vague conversations, but with consistent actions. And most importantly, you don't tell him everything, not where you've been, not how you've healed, not who else you've been seeing. Feedback. You give him nothing to measure or compare himself to. You give him uncertainty, because here's the thing about mystery, it forces reflection. Feedback. It creates space for him to do the thinking instead of you doing the explaining. And that's exactly what you want. Feedback. You want him sitting there trying to piece it together, wondering if you've moved on, if you're happy, if there's someone else. Not because you're playing games, feedback, but because you are no longer in the business of offering emotional freebies to people who walked away. Mystery is not manipulation, it's boundaries in action. Feedback. It's the art of not oversharing just because someone decides to re-enter your world. When someone leaves your life and tries to come back, feedback. They don't automatically get the same version of you they left behind. That version no longer exists. And if they want to be close again, they're going to have to be curious, respectful feedback, and consistent enough to earn it. Don't be afraid of being a little unpredictable. You don't have to answer right away. You don't have to explain where you've been. Feedback. You don't have to respond to every question, not because you're rude, but because you're protecting something sacred now, your peace. Feedback. And people regret losing those who found peace in their absence. It's unsettling. It disrupts their ego. It challenges the assumption that you were just waiting around. Feedback, hoping they'd return. When someone can't tell exactly where they stand with you, it forces them to think deeper, to analyze the last interaction, to remember all the things they took for granted. Feedback. And it opens the door for a kind of regret that no message or confrontation could ever create. Keep your tone light. Be kind, even warm, but don't be as available, not emotionally. Feedback, not conversationally, not logistically. You're not rude. You're just busy. You're building your life, and your energy should reflect that. It's tempting, I know. Feedback, to think that laying everything on the table will create closure or progress, but often it just relieves them of their discomfort. It gives them a clean exit or a clear advantage. Feedback, don't hand them that. Let them do the emotional labor for once. Let them sit in uncertainty. Let them feel the tension of not knowing what you're thinking, what you're feeling. Feedback, or what you want. And if they try to pry smile, be vague. Say, I've been focusing on me, or life's been interesting, and let it sit. Feedback. You don't need to fill every silence with a story or an update. You've earned the right to protect your progress. Feedback. You've earned the right to keep your journey sacred. Mystery doesn't mean playing games. It means having self-respect. Feedback. It means choosing not to make someone else's comfort more important than your boundaries. Feedback. It means you've stopped needing to prove your worth and started expecting others to recognize it without being spoon-fed. The truth is, feedback. People only regret losing you when they realize they no longer have access to who you used to be. And they only realize that when you stop explaining and start evolving quietly. Feedback. Let your absence speak. Let your growth confuse them. Let your mystery do what your words never could. Because the less he knows, the more he feels the loss.